Welcome back. In this video, I will talk about yet another one of the manifestations that can be found in Silent Hill 2, namely Maria. I already briefly touched upon this during the summary in video 5.1, but although Maria is never fully explained, she can be interpreted as another being born from James' psyche that has been given physical form in the town of Silent Hill, and as such there are a few things to consider. She may partly represent James' wish to see Mary again. This would also explain the title of a sub-scenario that is called Born from a Wish and deals with Maria's awakening in the town. This sub-story wasn't part of the original Silent Hill 2 though, and was added in a later re-release. But either way, I think that first and foremost, she should be seen as a manifestation of the repressed desires and sexual urges within James' unconscious mind. A manifestation of his sexual frustration that was caused by the fact that Mary's and his love life was practically dead due to the illness. In this regard, she also represents James' wish for a healthy, attractive and sexually active Mary. In Carla Schmidts Essay Der Archeplot im Game Silent Hill als klassische Heldenreise, which I have referenced before, Schmidt explains that Maria, as far as this side of her is concerned, fulfills the role of seductress and prostitute. In contrast to that, Schmidt assigns the role of saint and virgin to Mary, who experiences no real sexualization throughout the game. Now, a prostitute doesn't work for free. She charges a price for her services. Similarly, a character that fulfills the role of prostitute in literature often includes a price of some sort and has to be paid by those who take them up on their offers. Maria is no exception in this regard. In the ending where James chooses Maria over Mary, part of the price he has to pay is that he will find no salvation from Mary. On top of that, when James leaves with Maria in this ending, she suddenly starts coughing, implying that Maria is going to get sick now too, and James may be fated to experience the same kind of tragedy all over again. But more on that and the other endings in the next video. For now, let's rewind a bit and actually talk about Mary's first appearance in the game instead. So, the first time James meets Maria is in Rosewater Park, and her outward appearance, as well as her body language, her manner of speaking, and the way she acts towards James quickly evoke a sense of eroticism and seduction. Not only is she rather scantily clad, but there are also moments like this one right after James told her how much she looked like Mary. All of a sudden, Maria grabs his hand and brings it closer to herself. The camera in the scene is placed in such a way that the railing obstructs our view of where exactly his hand goes. And even though it's just as likely that she simply placed his hand within the palms of her own hands, the camera perspective makes it look almost as if she had put his hand on her breasts. This visual ambiguity is further emphasized by her choice of words and the way she says them.
See? Feel how warm I am?
Which causes James to be dumbfounded and mumble that she definitely isn't Mary.
You're really not Mary.
I told you, I'm Maria.
Another case in point, while talking to James, she actually leads the conversation towards sex. Mary's letter told him that she was waiting in their special place. James thought this was Rosewater Park, but clearly Mary isn't here. So he starts pondering what other place could have been meant by that, and eventually James comes up with the Lakeview Hotel, and this prompts Mary to say, "Demo hoteru de no omoide, ittai nan no omoide kashira?" Which can be translated as a whimsical, "Oh, but a memory related to the hotel? I sure wonder what kind of memory that would be." The English localization phrased this a bit more freely, but also in a fitting way.
So the hotel was your special place, huh? I'll bet it was.
So, in our very first encounter with her, we immediately experience Maria as a person that is attractive, assertive, and not afraid of touching James and bringing up sexual topics. Something else that's noteworthy about her is that she has a butterfly tattoo on her stomach. In the book Kaidan, Stories and Studies of Strange Things by Lafcadio Hearn, or Koizumi Yakumo as he later called himself, it is mentioned that in Japan, a butterfly can represent both the soul of a living and the soul of a dead person. Maria's tattoo may therefore be a reference to the soul of Mary, which she is either trying to imitate or which maybe even lives on within her. Additionally, according to the book Tattoo in Japan by Okazaki Manami, a butterfly in Japanese tattoos in particular can also represent reincarnation, metamorphosis, as well as pleasure and sexual promiscuity. Taking all this into consideration, I would argue that the choice of a butterfly tattoo on Maria was no coincidence and further underlines her role as a sort of sexualized reincarnation of Mary. She does, however, appear to have another purpose that we can already notice here as she suddenly drops a remark that feels like she too is trying to push James towards the truth.
You loved her, right? Or maybe You hated her.
Don't be ridiculous.
Perhaps the repressed negative feelings that James felt towards Mary at the end contributed to the creation of Maria as well, thus prompting her to say something like this. Or maybe as a creation of the town of Silent Hill, which I personally view as an active entity that calls people into its realm and confronts them with their past, it might be the town speaking through Maria here. At a later point of the game, when James and Maria explore the hospital, Maria suddenly mentions that she's exhausted and tries to get some rest on a hospital bed. She claims that it's just a hangover from the day before, thus touching on the topic of excessive alcohol consumption, which adds to her sinful bad girl image that makes her so different from the image of the saint-like Mary that we have at this point. But right at the start of the conversation, we can actually hear her coughing and see her take some pills, both of which points more towards an illness than a simple hangover. And this is fairly interesting because if Maria represents James' wish for a healthier and active Mary, then this scene takes away some of those very traits. Maria is suddenly robbed of her healthy appearance and her active nature, and these traits are replaced by some of the exact things that cause James to develop negative feelings towards Mary. As mentioned earlier, the actual ending in which James leaves with Maria appears to imply that Maria will become sick too, so it kind of feels as if the town itself was already warning James at this point that Maria will not lead him to salvation, but to a new cycle of sickness and suffering. And yet, she does continue her role as seductress even in this scene, for as soon as she's on the bed, she softly strokes over the mattress and remarks, "Hiroi betto da ne," which basically translates to spacious bed, huh? Clearly implying that there's room for one more person on the bed. In the official English localization, she says,
So comfy.
which may be slightly different from what Japanese says, but still feels like expressing the exact same sentiment as Japanese, namely that she's teasing James, inviting him to lie down with her. Now, if her exhaustion, brief coughing, and the fact that she took a few pills is indeed a warning that choosing Maria will doom James to repeat the same cycle as with Mary, then this warning is amplified in the alternative version of the hospital, because if you enter the same room that Maria decided to lie down in while you're in the alternative version of the hospital, then Maria will be gone, and instead you will find 4 empty medicine bottles, which prompts James to say, "Maria made byoki nano ka?" which translates to, "Is Maria sick now too?" The uncanny audio in this room, which consists of heavy breathing, even though there's no one else here, further underlines this theme of sickness. Later, in the basement of the alternative hospital, James is reunited with Maria, but only for a short period of time, because this is soon followed by her first execution at the hands of Pyramid Head. James and Maria are heading towards an elevator when Pyramid Head appears out of nowhere, starts following them, and finally impales Maria right in front of James. Her sudden death at this point of the game is likely to plunge many players into a state of shock and confusion, since it appears to end her role in the game quite unexpectedly and prematurely, erasing her from the stage before we could even learn about the truth behind her mysterious existence. But that's probably nothing compared to the utter confusion and possibly unease that most players must feel when they reach a certain room in the depth of the labyrinth, in which they encounter Maria again, who is sitting behind some iron bars that divide the room in two, smiling as if nothing had ever happened to her. And the beginning of their ensuing conversation even feels as if she was enjoying the fact that James is visibly confused about her being alive. Seemingly deprived of any memory of her death, she asks James what he is talking about, but then a slight change occurs in the way she talks.
James, honey, did something happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else? You were always so forgetful. Remember that time in the hotel?
She suddenly speaks like someone who has known James for a long time and appears to be in possession of memories that should belong to no one but Mary.
You said you took everything, but you forgot that videotape we made.
This only serves to further intensify her enigmatic nature until James, hopelessly confused, asks her whether or not she's Maria. Maria's response to this question is quite fitting for a manifestation that is shaped by James' desires.
Aren't you Maria?
I'm not your Mary.
So, you're Maria?
I am. If you want me to be.
And as if to address the repressed sexual urges that must have contributed to her existence, she suddenly does this.
It doesn't matter who I am. I'm here for you, James. See? I'm real. Don't you want to touch me?
To me, this feels like James is being tempted here. The town seems to test him, seems to ask, will James give in to the urges and desires that led to Maria's manifestation, or will he resist the temptation and continue his search for Mary? James is, of course, still confused and acts somewhat insecure, but he does not exactly resist when she touches him, and it feels like he may indeed be willing to give in to her temptation. What struck me as particularly noteworthy here is that James did not respond to the temptation of the sick-looking Maria in the hospital, but this healthy, active version of Maria seems to be able to captivate him in no time. However, it seems that as long as the town has not succeeded in making James remember his past and realize what he has done to Mary, Maria will remain one of the tools used to punish him and push him towards the truth. For when James finally reaches the room on the other side of the iron bars, he only finds her mutilated corpse on a bed. In the end, James first needs to face his past before he can either free himself from Maria or flee together with her. And so we end up at the hotel, where James finds the videotape and finally regains his repressed memories and emotions. Shortly thereafter, he reaches a large room with the two pyramid heads that I have talked about before, standing above him and Maria hanging in between them. James reacts by screaming at them, "Yamero, mo yamete kure, nandomo watashi o kurushimenai de kure," which translates to stop it already, stop tormenting me again and again. The English in-game voice differs slightly here again and says,
"Stop! Leave her alone! Leave us both the hell alone!"
which leads into the fight against the two pyramid heads that was already mentioned in the previous video and ends with them simply impaling themselves. They truly have realized that James does not need Pyramid Head anymore and therefore open the way towards the final confrontation, which in almost all endings happens between James and Maria, but that is a topic for the next video where I will talk in detail about the various endings. I hope to see you there, and as always, take care and goodbye.